I've been punched, had human waste thrown at me. I picked up a 400-pound biker only to have his 120-pound wife hit me in the back of the head with an iron. Knocked me out. He escaped. This is longtime bail enforcement agent Bob Burton recalling a dangerous moment from his time of being a bounty hunter. When I say bounty hunter, I'm sure a picture the majority of you get in your head is of a Western outlaw. But it is in fact quite different from what it used to be, and there's much less gunfighting. I had once looked into the career of a bail enforcement agent, and still would consider it if I was not pursuing the more official role of a police officer. The role of a bail enforcement agent uses investigative and oftentimes physical efforts to be able to make a decent effort and living off of it. Today, I'm going to be discussing the somewhat action-packed world of bail enforcing, better known as bounty hunting, and the risks and benefits of a job like this might bring. I'm going to start off with the basics of bail enforcement, just to get everybody on the same page of understanding. So, what is a bail recovery agent? Or even simpler, what is bail? So, I'm pretty sure we've all seen examples, whether in real life or in a movie, of somebody committing a crime, being arrested, and then being released the day after, as if it were no big deal. Situations like these are due to the system of bail. You see, when somebody commits a crime, they oftentimes post bail to avoid spending time in jail while they await trial for that crime they had committed. Because many people cannot usually afford the high cost of bail, they'll turn to these sureties or bail bond companies to cover the cost for an exchange of a 10 to 15% fee of the entire bond. This type of bond is a commercial bond, which is the most common. Other types would include a cash bond, property bond, or a release on one's own recognizance. According to the Consumer Protection for Criminal Defendants posted by the California Law Review, more than 60% of inmates in California jails are there for pretrial proceedings, mainly because they cannot afford the high cost of bail. A judge can ultimately deny bail, though, if a defendant had committed a capital crime. However, each state has different laws regarding how this whole system works. Article 1, Section 12 of the California Constitution states that bail can be denied for capital crimes, felony offenses involving acts of violence or sexual assault, or if the judge feels that you would be a harm to somebody if you were released from their confinement. What does a bail recovery agent do? Well, it's pretty simple. Those who fail to appear in court while receiving bail, it's the agent's job to pursue them. So, when a defendant does choose to skip out on bail, the agent's job is to locate and plan how they will apprehend their fugitive. This role uses many investigative strategies such as skip tracing, speaking with family and friends, or even speaking with informants on the street to see where the current whereabouts of their fugitive might be. It's also a very important fact to mention that bounty hunters are not subject to some of the constitutional laws that police are, such as entering a private residence without a warrant, and they may do so if they know that the location of their fugitive is certain. Now that I've covered most of the basics regarding the role of a bail enforcement agent, let's move on to any requirements this job might have, whether it's educational, physical, or any other helpful suggestions or recommendations. What training is required for this role? Anyone pursuing this career must complete the 40-hour powder arrest course certified by the Commissions on Peace Officer Standards and Training. So it's basically the guard card for security jobs. There's an additional 20 hours for firearms training, but it may not be available everywhere. They must also complete a total of 20 hours classroom pre-licensing education regarding all material and responsibilities of a bail licensee. California Penal Code 1299.04 states that those fugitives or felons who wish to pursue the career of bail enforcement must obtain a special license by the Department of Insurance. Penal Code also states you must be 18 years old to be able to become an agent and must have all relevant documentation on hand at all times. A bounty hunter is not a typical desk job. What I mean by this, and as I mentioned before, is that it may get physical at some times. However, there are no combat requirements or hand-to-hand or martial art or anything like that required. But some required courses, such as the peace officer training, may provide the required or requested training. Staying in a healthy physique will only grant you an advantage to pursuing and subduing your fugitives. So staying in a healthy shape is, of course, highly recommended by many. Tactical gear may also not be provided by the company or surety you work for, so those are definitely going to be personal expenses on your part. And being a bail recovery agent does not mean you'll be armed. If you were to use a firearm, you'd have to comply with the state laws that you reside in. Lastly, I'd like to move on to more important details concerning us and our surrounding Bay Area. Is it a practical and reliable long-term career? Well, it all depends on your location and success rate. What I mean by this is that salary and pay will vary throughout each region of the nation. Crime rates may be higher in some cities than others, so the available opportunities may vary throughout each part of the nation, is what I'm saying. Some opportunities may be in abundance in some higher crime cities, such as Oakland, where I already checked there is. According to the same Consumer Report on criminal defendants, California has a median bail amount of around $50,000, which is making it significantly higher than the national average of less than $10,000. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward, Bay Area surrounding average mean wage for private detectives and investigators, which are two closely related professions, has an average salary of around $73,000 in 2018. It's also great to mention that your continuous success as an agent greatly affects your salary. If you continuously fail with your job, you will not be paid at all. And then you will be liable if you actually fail to return these fugitives into the police custody. So that's that as well. Also, take into consideration of the bond amount. For example, if a defendant posted around $100 or $10,000 cash on a $100,000 bond, the agent would receive 10% of the posted amount, which was that $10,000, not the $100,000. So they would be getting 10%, which would be $1,000. So that's how you calculate how much you'll be getting. Some good and some bad things about being a bail enforcement agent would be independence, which is a good thing. You won't have anybody telling you what to do, according to Wolf Dog the Bounty Hunter. You get to make your own calls. You plan how you will apprehend your fugitive. You are naturally granted master authority when you sign up for this job. However, he also explains that it's somewhat hard to find jobs when first starting out because new recruits are such a big liability for these surety companies. He also goes on to say you got to find somebody desperate that doesn't want to lose money, and then you'll have a job on your hand. But he also does bring up a point that once cases do start to rise, they may be inconsistent with files, so it may not always be a good thing. As we're coming to the conclusion of my speech, I want to review key points that I discussed for this career that I feel should be kept in mind. I've gone over to what the bail enforcement agent is, the basic role they perform, and the tasks they handle, as well as the training and education requirements needed to become an agent. And if the job is practical enough that a living could be made off of it. So if it seems exciting or interesting to you, go for it. Remember, the success of being a bail enforcement relies on your overall success and the opportunities available. Of strategically and dude, I'm not trying to redo this. Strategically and investigating and having a physical advantage will greatly increase your chances for accomplishment. So before I finish, let me leave you off with a quote, a middle motivational quote by a renowned bounty hunter known as Dog. You can't be afraid to put out a fire if you're a fireman. You can't be a police officer and carry a gun if you're afraid to get up and go out there. So you gotta put that fear to the side and go out in faith to overcome that. The Dog, the bounty hunter. If there were a lot of mistakes, I'm sorry. It's just the practice recording. And I've counted how many times I've done this, and it's been 172, and I'm not doing this again. I'm losing my voice if you can hear. I don't know.